Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm Erin Mahoney, VP of Product here at ISSA. And today I'm really excited to be joined by Josh Bryant. Josh is not only the author of Amazon's best-selling book, Jailhouse Strong, he's also a world-renowned strength coach. And for us, he is the author of the ISSA Bodybuilding Specialist course. Josh has also been a record-setting powerlifter for strength athletes and has coached multiple world record holders in various events. And recently, by demand, Josh has transitioned into working with athletes via remote training. Josh, thanks for joining us today. We're excited to have you here.
I'm honored to be here. Thanks for having me, Erin.
Sure. So we're going to start today, Josh, by answering some questions that we received through social media and also email. And then for all the people that are listening, what you can do is you can chime in with your questions and we will answer them as we start segueing through it. What's most important that we're going to be talking about today is doing workouts from home. And we've got this amazing power lifter here that's going to tell us all about what you can do at home to achieve whatever goals you might have. So let's check it out. First one is, well, the first thing is, given everybody's at home right now, Josh, it's a lot harder to make personal training happen. Half of the trainers' battles are around technology, but the other half is really around programs that clients can do anywhere, regardless of their goals. So can you start by talking about some of the misconceptions that trainers might have about getting results with limited equipment?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the biggest misconception right off the bat is people aren't able to get quality results with limited equipment. And so what we can look at here, if you have a tough time, selling a client on this, is just look at prisons. There's all kinds of people there that could easily win a natural bodybuilding contest, yet they don't have any weights. Weights have been banned there since 1992. So all these results are made primarily with body weight training, or they're having to rig up some sort of, like a trash bag with water and do bicep curls or things like that. So that's first and foremost. Secondly, I think bodybuilding or bodyweight training, excuse me, keep throwing me off, I said bodybuilding course. So bodyweight training is very fundamental to people's success. So it's basic, and basic does mean fundamental. It does not mean elementary. So we can, improve in all these basic movement patterns during this time. And look at like all of trainers already that are having success. They're, people with very limited budgets are doing these park boot camps. And I don't know what the rules are right now everywhere, but they could easily run these boot camps and be more than 6 feet apart. And they're getting great results with people, and people are enjoying just real basic stuff, body weights, sandbags, things like that. I mean, so you can totally get very effective results this way. And it's a great way to build your business right now, because there's not a lot of people doing this. So it's your chance to kind of get ahead of the curve right here. And then plus, introduce your clients to a solid training they might like.
I love that you brought up, people in prison that probably don't have any equipment, and somehow they look like they have a ton of equipment. And I think that's really important for trainers to constantly remember, but also probably remind their clients. Like, that's a great way to kind of sell them on body weight training. Would you say so?
100%. So the only difference is somebody advanced, you'd have to make, more advanced variations. And somebody that's really heavy, you may have to scale it back, or you're going to have to scale it back again. But I mean, you can just stand, have the person stand 24 inches from a wall and do push-ups, where somebody else that's very advanced, say you have some champion powerlifter that, benches 400 pounds, weighs 150. That person might be doing one-arm push-ups. So it's very scalable. It's not like, weights obviously are scalable. You add more, take it off, whatever. Bodyweight training is the same way, with just a little bit of innovation.
Awesome. I'm going to keep going on some of the questions that were submitted previously, but for those that are listening, I see some chats coming up. You can feel free to chat those directly in there, and we will definitely get to them. So feel free to chat away. My next one for you is, you mentioned like garbage bags filled up with water. And so the next one is, first of all, there's a lot of increased prices with home equipment, and some of it's even unavailable. Like, you can't even get it for like a month or two. So what is your, let's say, top 3 hacks that almost everyone has at home that they can use for equipment in times like this?
Okay, I'm gonna go 4, because first off, I think if you're a trainer, you should have some sort of bands just for this situation, and you can use them on barbell lifts for accommodating resistance, things like that. but we're not going to count that because not everybody, that's like, for the next time something happens. So what we have right now, most people have some sort of jugs at home. So you can, take like, say, gallon jugs, do bicep curls, tricep extensions, any kind of device like that. Even if you have a bag and you filled it up with water, you can do tricep extensions, you can bear hug it and do Zercher squat. You can do all sorts of different things with all those household items. Another thing people don't think about are elevated surfaces. So the countertop would be someone's overweight, doesn't have body weight experience. That's a good place to start, say, on push-ups. Somebody more advanced could put their feet up on that same countertop and make it into a decline push-up where they're handling a lot more of their body weight. It makes it much more difficult. So both of these people can just make it scalable to their current situation. And then, think about it, the same elevated surface, if you get under it, inverted, you could do a bicep curl with it. You could do a tricep extension against it. There's all sorts of if you don't mind jumping on your kitchen countertops, you do plyometrics. All sorts of things like that. And then another one most people don't think about is another living being. It could be a person, an animal, or anything else. You have a cat or something, you carry your cat around. If you're really, really strong and you're married to somebody that weighs 300 pounds, you could possibly do Zercher squats. We can take it to a lot of different extremes. So there's all sorts of it. If there's another living being that's willing and cooperative, there you go. Those three things I think will do really well for you.
All right, so let me make sure I got it right also for our listeners. So your top 4 are bands, countertops, whether that's to progress it or regress it. And then we had the water jugs, and then we had the living beings. I love the water jugs. We have like one of those big water coolers that's whatever, how many jugs, I don't know, probably 5 gallons or something, or maybe whatever. And I always hate setting it up, but now without the equipment, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to use this for my squats. So, even if you don't have one, I'm pretty sure you can go buy one and just refill it. And that adds substantial weight. So
absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, cool. Let's keep going. Next up. So, let's talk about, it's easy to think of, you mentioned this earlier, where it's easy to think of like when you have normal equipment at the gym, you can stack on more weight, but in this particular circumstance, you can't. So you talked about inverting in order to increase the intensity. What are some other ways that clients can be increasing their intensity so they feel like they're really getting a solid workout?
That's a great question because your more advanced client, that's, a lot of people avoid bodyweight training for this particular reason and think it can only be sort of an endurance happy type of thing. And it's a great way to build strength properly applied. So there's a number of different ways. Number one is, let's look at the tempo. So to make it a little bit harder, we could, let's just use the push-up, for example. You could make it and do it instead of a normal cadence, do a 5-second negative on the way down. Make it a little bit harder that way. A little more time under tension, not maximum tension, but you are getting a little more time under tension. We'll take that. Good for hypertrophy and just to kind of rekindle your mind muscle connection. Want to kick it up a notch. Okay. So anybody here who's taking the bodybuilding course has read a little bit about compensatory acceleration training. So what that means is you're basically compensating for improved leverage by exploding as hard as possible. So in a push-up, you could do it more forcefully on the way up. You could even really take it to the next level and do a plyometric push-up where you become airborne. So by that maximum force production right there, that's by default increasing intensity. Okay, the next thing you could do besides that is go unilateral. Just think about it. A 2-legged squat may not be hard for you. Now do a pistol squat. A pistol squat is going to be much, much harder. Pause the reps. So you think about it, just a push-up, pause it at the bottom. A pull-up, if you hold it at the top for a second, by pausing those reps, you've by default you've increased intensity. You can just move away from your midline. You think about it, if you do a push-up with your arms out in front of you, it's going to be more difficult than if you do a push-up, in a normal position. Even lunging, if you put your hands above your heads when you lunge or squat, it's more, if you hold them by your side. So all those different things are different things you can do to increase the intensity of the workouts. And even look at like just surfaces around you, just elevating those surfaces in certain instances, because a push-up's more difficult with your feet up.
Perfect. So again, recapping for our listeners. So we've got, modifying the elevation, and
Yeah.
also we talked about tempo, which I think it's a really good thing to bring up. I think a lot of trainers typically assume, yeah, we can change the intensity by the elevation, but I think they forget about the tempo by either pausing at different parts of the motion or by increasing the tempo. So I love that you brought that up. And then you also talked about doing things unilaterally, which again, that's great. That can challenge their balance mechanisms. It can make it heavier. So
Let me add to the unilateral part too. Is somebody, there's kind of like intermediate unilateral too. So for instance, you could put, one arm push-up. You could put a basketball on your offside and then do a push-up on your, if I'm doing my right side here, I could put a basketball over here. So I'm kind of doing it, not fully engaged, not full on one arm push-up, doing a one arm push-up on your knees. You can do a one arm push-up against, an elevated surface. So it doesn't have to be like, okay, I either do a 2-arm push-up or a 1-arm. There are intermediate stages of the 1-arm push-up.
I'm getting excited to do my next workout. So now talking to you, I'm seeing the questions come in. We've got plenty of time. I promise we're going to get to them. But like this one that just popped up is, it was actually a statement, but they said, hey, I've yet to be able to do a full pistol squat. So maybe talk about how you can progress from being able to do just a regular, squat into a full pistol squat. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah. So, I would first off tell you guys to go to my YouTube channel. It's a Jailhouse Strong. I have a video up called Body Weight Progressions. So it's going to go through all these different movements showing you. But just real quickly here, you could, there's a few different ways you can do. You can start off by doing it to like an elevated surface, say like a bench or something, and slowly, working your way down. Then you can do it where you hold on to something in front of you. On the video, there's actually 25 steps to different progressions on how to do it, but you just gradually kind of increase the intensity, which in this case is increasing, the range of motion. And I should have said that, and let me get back to the other question. I said that was the other way to increase the body weight intensity that I should have mentioned, or also I just thought of it right now, was increasing the range of motion too.
Perfect. So somebody had asked, what are some good leg workouts? We just talked through pistol squat. Anything else that comes to mind that people can add for legs other than just typical squats?
So do you know anything if the person's advanced or not?
Nope. I just heard, hey, what are good so maybe we start with some basic and then go to advanced.
Yeah. So for the basics, you have like your body weight, body weight squat variations. So that can be just a typical body weight squat, then you can evolve that into, if someone's ready for it, a jump squat. So you actually get airborne on the way up. You can take it, to like things like Bulgarian split squats and things like that are, they're kind of unilateral, but you're not full on doing a pistol squat or anything of that nature. And then if you got someone way more advanced, one of my favorites to do, like what I consider like one of the big 5 in a bodyweight movement, is the Nordic leg curl. So that is basically, if you have somebody that can hold down your feet, you lower you're up like this. And again, I got this video, just type in Josh Bryant Nordic leg curl, come up on YouTube if you want to see it like in action. But basically somebody's like this, they're going to lower themselves at like I like a 5-second tempo. So they're going to lower themselves for 5 seconds. And that put that if you look, and also if you got a minute, go on Google Scholar, type in Nordic leg curl. There's dozens of studies correlating that with injury prevention. So it's huge for that anyways. I use this all the time with clients. The one I have on YouTube is with a person that had the fastest fastball in the major league. So it's not just like a prehab or type of thing. It's going to really essentially overload. So if someone's unable to do that, what you can do is have them stop themselves on the way down with their hands, like a push-up, so they get a partial range of motion. Or if you have, if you have the luxury of having bands, then you can do it with the band, because as it comes down further and it gets, more vulnerable, more difficult position, that band's going to stretch tighter and provide more assistance to get the full range of motion. So I think
those Nordic leg curls, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So there's a question in here. I want to make sure I understand it. It says, from LeVar, hello, I'm a new certified trainer. What are some good gym, less endurance exercises for indoor with no equipment? So it looks like, are you asking for, less endurance? Does that mean more power? We'll see if that participant chats us back so that you can answer that a little bit better.
Well, that's exactly what I mean. So you're thinking less endurance, you're thinking less strength. And again, if you guys go on Google today, look up a guy named the Great Gama, and he's arguably the best wrestler in the history of wrestling from about 100 years ago in India. And all he did is train with bodyweight training. But what he did is instead of doing like regular push-ups, he did things like Hindu push-ups, like a dive bomber sort of push-ups. So you can either, if somebody's advanced like that, you have to use those intensity techniques, make more difficult, make a push-up become a Hindu push-up, a one-arm push-up, things like that. So you just keep those lower rep ranges, but to obviously get the adaptive overload, it has to be difficult enough to make it happen. So that's where you're going to have to get, there's all sorts of advanced bodyweight movements like that. I mean, just increase the tempo, go unilateral, increase range of motion, things like that. You can make it happen.
Fantastic. There's a chat in here actually asking about different ways to do assessments online. I do want to tell this participant that's going to be one of our next ISSA talks, is talking about how to do these different assessments when you can't be with somebody in person. But Josh, does anything come to mind quickly that you want to address on assessments?
Yeah. So a lot of if you're doing any kind of, assessment where you have to watch the person, you can do a lot more than you'd think on Skype, or you can do like a Skype personal training session. You can do Skype, any sort of assessment where you need to watch the person. But I mean, for the safe bet are things like, body weight measurements, things like that. And I don't think we're going to be in this situation for a super long time. So I don't think you have to like stress out on the assessment if it's, because a large part of, in my opinion, of this whole thing right now that we're dealing with is psychological for people. So a lot of people are going to use this as, like kind of a coping mechanism or a way to make themselves feel better. It's, even if, the assessment's not perfect, they're so happy they get to train and they feel better physically and mentally that I think you can get away with maybe not doing as much as you normally would. But if you need to see something, absolutely, I would recommend having a go-to sheet of what you tell them. So like, for instance, if you're assessing just a squat, I want it from a front diagonal angle. Just kind of, if you just say, send me a video of you squatting, it may not be a good angle. They may have never done this before. So just have whatever you normally do. If it's not going to be live on Skype, we can say, hey, move over here. Have explicit instructions ahead of time, and I think you'll be fine.
You brought up a great point. This isn't forever, and we do have to find a way to make it work. There have been lots of questions about just that question, assessing clients, and I appreciate your perspective on getting as much as you can in this, type of format right now, and understanding that eventually you'll be able to transition into other assessments. And you didn't, it sounds like just like let's all be patient with one another and do the best we can because your clients still want it.
Well, I think if they're joining you at this point, they're not in it for an assessment. You know what I mean? Like, they're in it just to get going right now. They need something right now. And that's not the best way to always do things, but it's a very unique situation where you have to take into account the whole person, the mental aspect, not just the physical.
That's a great point too. Somebody asked a good question is, I'd love to hear your take on this, is do you feel that the online market is saturated right now with so many trainers also transitioning to online because of the COVID-19?
Definitely saturated in the sense there's more people do it, but it's also saturated in the sense there's more people willing to do it. So probably, evens out at the end of the day, because there's a lot of people that would not even consider online training with a personal trainer, but now they have no choice. So for every, new person that takes up online training, you're gonna have a bunch of new potential clients in the pool too. So you just have to find, what's your target market. If you're, if you're an endurance, runner and that's kind of been your main clientele, and all of a sudden you're coming out talking about, college offensive lineman bulking up, you might not be taken seriously just because that's not your market, where, the flip side is just the opposite. So you need to find your target market. And I think when you find your niche, then, it doesn't matter how saturated it is if you're good enough at it.
Yeah. That's a good point. It's always important to know your target market. I also, one thing I've noticed is, yeah, everyone's trying to go to virtual, but that varies greatly. And when I go for a run around our park over here, there's a lot of trainers out there still training their clients in person. So I think some of the trainers are still stuck with the mindset of being in person. So kind of that's my take on it, is that there are still trainers that probably haven't made that transition yet.
I think you can separate yourself too by doing things on Skype and things like that. A lot of times what people think online training is some Instagram celebrity just sends you like a copy and pasted work, and it's basically the person's paying for it saying so-and-so trains me rather than quality training. So eventually the cream's going to rise to the top. So just keep doing the right thing, and eventually people will notice, and your retention will be higher. Their whole philosophy is there's a sucker born every minute, there's sell one program, it's over. Where your philosophy needs to be, I'm going to do the best I can for somebody, and that person's going to, appreciate it, stay with me, and help refer me other people.
And I think also, to your point, cream rising to the top, sometimes I think trainers can be concerned about, or not concerned, but a little intimidated by technology, because everything that they do is in person. So to add on to what you're saying, to be part of that cream that rises to the top, make sure that we've got an ISSA talk on some different platforms that you can use for coaching. So check that one out if you haven't, and be part of that cream that goes to the top. All right, I've got a bunch. I love the questions. So somebody had made a statement about tying in nutrition with bodybuilding. And so before you answer that, there was also a question that we had submitted prior, which was, how do you hold clients accountable when they're working from home and they have like tons of food at their disposal? So maybe you can talk about tying in nutrition into bodybuilding with your clients, and then also how you hold them accountable.
Well, let's go to accountable first. So my question would be, I'd throw one back at you. How do you normally hold them accountable? If you're lucky, you're getting maybe 3 hours a week. So what about those 165 hours? So I don't think a whole lot should change there. I mean, if you're checking in with them and things like that, and they're sending you videos and that kind of stuff, you're corresponding, just how's the nutritional aspect of things going? And I think you're going to, as long as you have rapport with that client, I think you're going to at least get honest answers. And then, another thing I like to do with people, just have them write down what they're eating. There's all sorts of studies online. Look at this up in Google Scholar too. When people don't actually count calories, they just, are eating to lose weight type of deal. They always underestimate their calories. It's not my opinion. It's scientific literature. So just have the person write it down. They might be like, whoa, I had, ice cream 4 times this week, that kind of thing. And I think that's just, when they see it written down, it's going to make a light bulb go off. So besides if you don't normally do that I think is a huge strategy in this time. And I also think my personal opinion is most people that work out of it right now with a lot of time on their hands are either going to come out of this thing in better shape or worse shape. So, I mean, that's just the reality of it. With more time to work out, yeah, if your goal is to set the world record in deadlift and you don't have a barbell, that's going to be a problem. But if it's to get into better condition, I mean, they're going to get into better condition or not. And I think it's a good chance to separate yourself by kind of establishing yourself as a nutritional expert. And you can do that via, like, all this stuff can be done, like your Facebook posts and things like that. Just be the nice person that suggests, on my personal page and my business page, I just throw up workouts. I mean, I put up like body weights, different workouts all the time. There's no link to sign up. There's no strings attached. Just, you want to do it. If not, don't. But people appreciate that. So for one, it's just a nice thing to do. It's helping people out, even if they're never going to pay you. For two, I think you're going to get business that way. It's just, if enough people see your stuff, it becomes a game of numbers.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it's with a lot of the stuff that we've been looking at over here at ISSA and things that we're going to start offering our trainers, it's definitely addressed that giving away stuff for free is great for exposure, because then those people are just going to want more, and then you can actually provide a service offering for them. We've only got about 4 minutes left, and I want to target in, since we have you here and you're the jailhouse strength guy and our bodybuilding author. So I want to ask a few more questions, a couple others. There's a lot of chats coming up about online coaching and different platforms. And so I'm telling the participants, we do have other webinars on that. And in our ISSA talk series, we're going to be addressing a lot more of this. So make sure you stick around and attend those. But let's stick to some of these ones more related in what you're doing, Josh. tell me about this. What about burpees? So clients hate burpees, but there's, I guess, benefits to it, right? So tell me what's so great about them.
I think what's so great about burpees is teaches the body to work together effectively as an integrated unit. So it's sort of like, I would call it like almost like the Swiss Army knife of exercises, sort of like the deadlift. It doesn't probably do any one thing the best, but it does a lot of different things well. So it's a great way to get yourself into condition. And again, you can scale it and make it harder. Like a famous one that they, do in prison is they actually will have people do a burpee, do a couple push-ups at the bottom, jump up, and then they'll throw a knee each way. So, it's almost like a unilateral leg raise if you want to look at it a different way. It doesn't matter what it is, but you can make it more difficult by doing things like that. Like I'll have, like, when my kids work out, I have them go out there in our garage, and they're getting to where now they're doing burpees, and they jump up and do pull-ups on them and stuff. So you can make it more difficult. But even just the most basic burpee is teaching your body to work together as an integrated unit. And actually, a little history on it is it was the way a lot of recruiters assessed soldiers for World War II. Just a little piece. That's how it came about.
What are that's pretty cool. It's been around for that long.
Yeah.
What are, somebody else had asked, because some trainers will be like, oh, burpees 10 different ways or whatever. So how would you program? And let's maybe talk about like a more advanced client. So how would you program burpees for somebody trying to achieve hypertrophy and strength?
Okay, so if we're going to achieve hypertrophy and strength, few things we need to really make sure there's some sort of resistant component, like part of it, like some sort of, for more, some sort of difficult push-up variation at the bottom, or a pull-up variation when they come up and jump up. And then really when they jump up out of the burpee, make sure they're focusing on exploding and getting high, not just like, not just kind of like, I'm gonna do 100 burpees and barely clear the ground. And, really make sure they maximize, that's where tempo comes in. They really want to be explosive on that burpee on the way up to maximize the strength adaptations. And interesting, I don't know if these are nonsense or not, but online, if you type in like 100 burpee transformations, there's all sorts of people that claim they have made these transformations in like short as like 6 weeks and stuff. So it's pretty interesting, like of people that do burpees every day. So it's something, if nothing else, just have your clients Google it if they don't want to buy into it. Good selling point.
I love it. And I wish we could even talk more about that. We have 1 minute left. And so really what I'm going to do, somebody said, what is a burpee? So in 1 minute, I'll just do it. You squat down, you kick your legs out, you do a push up at the bottom, bring both legs back in. So you're in a low squat touching the ground, and then you jump straight up. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. We've had so much interaction and participation on here. We'd love to have you again. I'm not sure if Zoom is going to kick us off, but thank you all for your questions, and we'll be sure to find ways to address them for you guys.
Okay. I look forward to coming on again. Thanks.
Stay safe. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.